Welcome. Good afternoon. We'll get started. So now that Rahat has actually set this stage for us to begin, we want to begin with a short activity, just to get us in the right frame of mind and blank slate. She's passing around a piece of paper. The teacher in me wants to let you know that once the paper is there, please hold it in one hand, wait for colors that will be passed around, and snap when you have both of these and look at me. We can pass around the colors now, please. Yes. Will they need to share?
Yeah. Can you all share the color?
Maybe one pack between 3 individuals.
We might have less colors, so please share.
You should have enough for one between 3. There are more coming. Okay. Please snap if you're ready. With the thank you so much. With a sheet of paper and a bunch of colors to go with the 3 of you.
Keeping eraser box over here, can you please erase? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's begin. A quick reflection exercise for you to go down your memory lane. Think of one person from your childhood who you really liked, who was your favorite, for lack of want of a better word, and somebody you really felt comfortable around. Think of, usually when you think of these memories, these scenes come to your mind, right? You know that there was one instance in a certain place. For example, I had this teacher who I really, really loved in my kindergarten, and I know there was this one particular scene where she was talking to my mother. So I know that scene comes to my mind. So just take about 20 seconds to think through who this person is and what scene comes to your mind. You do not need to present your drawing, so we can relax around that. And then we'll take about 2 to 3 minutes just depicting that on paper. Your time to think starts now. Once you finish, you want to connect that back to safety. That is something that you really wanted to do.
And then we can begin the safety part of.
So once that is connected back to that.
Do I have to keep this here?
I'm moving this all over the place. Because
But then we'll have to keep removing it and give it to me.
We have to keep this here. Like we have to speak like this.
Sharing, so it will be more No, that's fine. Or maybe we won't use it.
ठीक है कर लेंगे मैनेज. I'll hold it. I'll speak like this.
I mean, if we had a ruler or a scale, you can just clip it on that and hold it like a mic. That's easier then.
Yeah, but now we were waiting for 20 minutes share later. A little patience are all.
We'll take about 10 more seconds to collect our thoughts.
Over here, somewhere between.
Okay.
Should I keep a chair over here?
Yeah, sure.
Just keep the mic.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
So we don't have to break it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you can now start putting down that scene that came into your head on paper. If you don't have one, just hold the thought of one person close to you and think about who you can come to recollect. I understand that for a lot of people this is not a very quick exercise, and this may not come easily, especially not a person or a scene together. If it doesn't come to you, it's okay. Just hold the thought and we'll wait for it to move on. You can begin visualizing, drawing, coloring. We'll take about 3 minutes for you to come to. Let's come back together. I'll hand this over to Pragya to help us understand what this meant and how this connects to safety.
So, Mathangi asked you to draw a picture of a situation where you felt safe. It could be through your childhood or a recent memory. Can anyone sort of share, if you are comfortable, about the memory that you drew and how did you feel in that particular situation? No, it's fine.
So I like to talk about my school counselor. So throughout my 12 years of school, I had only one friend, that is my school counselor. And basically, when my mind was just clouded with all the thoughts of bullying, I would just go to her in the recess. And she used to tell me, Akanksha, your goal for the day is just to eat your food, attend your classes, and come back to me in the recess and tell me one thing to enjoy. And that's what kept me going through 12 years. I used to have my lunch with her. And she told me, okay, now there might be kids like you in the safe school. Can you find them and can you start teaching them? So when I was in grade 5, I started teaching kids in grade 3. So she helped me feel safe and she helped me make a platform to make other kids feel safe.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Akanksha. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I drew up my aunt. She's not even a blood relative, she was just a neighbor, but practically my second mom. So the memories that I drew were like very limitless, but the primary memories are when she used to feed me food even when I was like a teenager, when I could actually have my own food. And she used to like carry me on her waist, like even when I was like 10, because we had to walk a long distance and she didn't want my feet and things like that. So that made me feel like very valued, very important, and seen in a whole like world of like a lot of children.
Nice. Thank you. May I know your name?
Shama.
Shama, thank you for sharing that. One last and then we will move forward. Yes, ma'am.
So I actually have memory of two very strong women in my life. One was when I was around 5 years old and I started exploring the world without my parents. Like parents were at home, but I was exploring the world on my own. And there were I felt weird changes happening in me. And I had a teacher, I don't remember her name. I'm right now 57 years old. So I'm talking about when I was around 8 years old, right? So I still remember her face. I still remember she used to wear saffron color clothes. She gave me a lot of confidence. She told me it's okay to be weird, it's okay to feel weird also. But whatever you are doing is right and don't hesitate from accepting whatever it is. And second memory was of my grandmother. Again, she was old. She used to wear those khadau, lakdi ka chadai, that kind of personality. She taught me so many things, which are the skills especially, and the knowledge, the worldly knowledge, which I use till now. So very strong women. I made this picture of both of them together.
Nice. So, ma'am, your name?
Seema.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing. So, I will just iterate one quick trigger warning because this space talks a lot about child safety. So there might be certain situation or some examples that we may share or some of us may share which may trigger some of us. So in that case, please feel free to walk out and drink water and feel free to relax. Okay, so coming back to the elements of safety. So largely what I heard from different examples that you shared was a sense of psychological safety that I want to feel valued, I want to feel heard, I want to feel seen. This is what a child expects when they come to school. This is what a child expects with the family. And I will go back to my master's while I was pursuing psychology. I did my thesis in, and this again comes with a trigger warning. So I did my thesis in suicide. So I was reading a lot of suicide notes that time. One thing that came out very commonly was that in all the notes, people have mentioned that they had no one to talk to. So 142 करोड़ की आबादी वाले देश में 142 करोड़ की आबादी है हमारे देश में and we don't have anyone to talk to. So this session will largely focus on, how to create inclusive spaces, safe spaces, where every single child doesn't fear of feeling dejected or getting humiliated, or they are seen, they are heard, their opinions, their values, their thoughts matter, not just in classrooms, but even in homes. Second thing, even through policies, this has been highlighted multiple times that safety is not to be considered as a priority. It is a need. It is required by every single child. And if Chetali, if you would like to add on to that.
Thank you. So just connecting the dots from where she's left. We're talking a lot about psychological safety, emotional safety. There are multiple other aspects as well, physical safety. A huge element of protection is also meeting the needs of the child, right? Before even you can have an emotional requirement or wanting to be visible, there are physical needs that need to be met, and all of these are encompassed under protection, which Chaitali works a lot around. I just wanted to invite both Chaitali and Pragya following that to explain or share what safety means to you. When we say child safety, what does that mean to you?
So I think a lot of you, when you are shared, and I think even what Pragya was talking about, safety, we feel, what we think, the thought that comes is often about a feeling. And I think we forget that it's actually a very fundamental right. Protection and safety by UNCRC, as well as even the Constitution of India, it's actually a fundamental right. And it is on the foundation of safety. If you don't feel protected, if you are not safe, other goals, other development goals would suffer. You cannot expect learning, participation, all of those to happen if you're not safe. So it's not, in my mind, I don't look at safety as a feeling. I don't look at it as a service. No, it's not a need. It's actually a right by the Constitution of India that we need to. So if it's there, it's laid down by UNCRC, it's laid down by the Constitution of India, then it's also where does the accountability lie? Then the accountability is with everyone to ensure that safety, to ensure that that right is met. So really, it is about that, and we do look in India, unfortunately, even though this is a right, we don't have a cadre. You have teachers to do education, you have Anganwadi workers to look at, you have ASHA workers to look at health, but what you don't have, child protection, when you look at protection, there isn't a cadre of people to do this work of protection. So then where does that, what does that come down to? And who's going to do it as well, right? So it's really looking at it a little bit differently to say, yeah, it's not about what you are given or what you need, but it is like how we talk about education as a right, and we also have to talk in that same breath as protection and safety as rights.
Thanks, Chaitali. Just building off of that, right, yes, and you were speaking about the other facets, right? We already covered psychological and emotional. What else would be under the umbrella of safety, in your opinion?
So one example I would like to share is something that is commonly found in certain states of India is around social and cultural safety. So I would like to highlight any given child, doesn't have to worry when they go to school. They don't have to worry that my identity will be judged based on my caste, based on my class, based on my disability, based on my gender orientation. And unfortunately, in many given scenarios, this is commonly highlighted that, even till today, in all sort of schools, there are, एक एग्जाम्पल देना चाहूँगी कि एक गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में जब मैं काम कर रही थी, वहाँ पर बच्चों के लिए पीने का मटका अलग रखा गया है क्योंकि वो एक पर्टिकुलर कास्ट से आते हैं. So now in those given scenarios, how do we look at the word safety? वहाँ पे शायद the child doesn't feel threatened that the child will be abused physically, but the child is abused emotionally, the child is abused mentally, and the child does feel that, okay, the society that I come from, the family that I belong to, has no place in the setup of social hierarchy. I am at the lowest category, and to climb to that, the place where I want to reach, I need to move through these barriers. I even have to struggle with a lot of access related opportunities because opportunity बाद में है, उसके पहले access ही नहीं है मेरे पास उस तक पहुंचने का, वो मैं कहाँ से build करूँ? तो this is what safety means to me. That of course we cover the issues of physical, sexual violence, but also any given identity that I associate with, I don't get denied because of my identity. So that is also what safety means to me.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to add the elements around, we spoke about physical, emotional. We also need a lot of work around digital safety given the direction the world is moving today.
Right.
But I think that also has its underpinnings in emotional safety and bullying and responsibility, responsible communication.
Right.
Would you like to share your thoughts on that?
So a lot of acts even focus on digital protection, and currently, the recent digital protection act that is going to be launched has a lot of questions in place that whether this act is going to work, because when the child is using digital media, so making accounts on social media or using going on YouTube, watching certain videos, the consent has to be taken from parents because the child is below the age of 30. Now, how much of that consent is workable, especially in our context where most of our children can't access smartphones, right? Even in those contexts, children do have access to reels, do have access to them being taped. And when I'm being taped, do I know that I have the right to say no to being taped? Or if I'm giving an opinion or sharing an opinion on a certain platform or in a classroom setup or in a playground setup, without me knowing, someone cannot shoot me or someone cannot take my picture or place my picture on social media with certain comments. So do I have all this awareness? So a lot of input, even on bringing that awareness of digital safety, needs to be inculcated in everyday curriculum so that the children, when they make their social media account, they know the do's and don'ts of using it safely, and also ensuring that as a peer, I don't intrude in someone else's boundary by making certain comments or by making a fake ID just to take some revenge, because that is also commonly highlighted multiple times. So yes, digital safety is another area that is growing at a fast speed, and with the coming of AI, just one more thing I would like to highlight is with the coming of AI, we also see a lot of prompts when we ask AI certain questions about certain situations, or we are creating certain curriculum. If I were to ask that, okay, design an astronaut and I would like to share this in my classroom, most of the time these prompts are also gendered. So now how to also ensure that I have the insight that this is not coming from a place of safety, and how to create an inclusive environment where I know that, okay, I need to change this. I need to identify that this doesn't seem to be appropriate, this doesn't seem to be right. So that also is a sense of safety for me.
Yeah, thank you so much. As I heard you speak, Chaitali, and you, Prerna, I think recurring words that we kept hearing were need, right, stating that this is fundamental to work that anybody should be doing, especially while interacting with children. Given that our audience today is largely educators and folks working at the school level, what do you think is the significance of school level actors in child safeguarding? You can go.
So I think, like I mentioned even earlier, unfortunately, to do the work of protection and to do the work of ensuring safety, there isn't a cadre of people for ensuring children learn and their learning needs are met. We have teachers, right? And those teachers are there across, whether they're good or bad, I'm not getting into. But the fact is, we have teachers, but we don't have anyone doing the work of child protection. The point is that you cannot do the work of child protection like that singularly as well, right? And so really what I would say is that it is anybody who works with children, anybody who interacts with children, either directly or indirectly, has to think about their safety and protection. And I think even as you mentioned, it's very, very vast. So I think even when we started this conversation, when we were thinking and designing, it was like, well, let's talk about safety and protection. But it's so vast. You're hearing about digital safety and protection, you're hearing about emotional, there's sexual, there's all kinds of it, and it is different. The understanding of it, the response of it is different. The laws and the protocols around it are different. Those exist. But what doesn't exist are the people to then actually do the work of it. So I would say anybody that interacts with children has to do that work. All of you all interact with children in some capacity, either as school leaders, as teachers, and you'll interact with the parents as well. So it's really about saying, if nobody wants to see children get harmed, but we live in a country today where 1.5 million girls are getting their child rights every year. We have 300 million children at work. A child goes missing in India, 7 children go missing in India every hour, right? These are the statistics of today. But nobody wants to. So who's going to do the work? It has to be everyone. So really, even as you're in the role of school leaders, educators, how do you widen the ecosystem around the child so that children can be made safer? And it's not, mera responsibility is learning, I'm going to make sure that I will teach, right? But that what is happening to a child outside of the home is not mine. That can be the families, that can be. So how do you actually build as influencing, all of you all in some capacity are also influencing what's happening in the child's life. You all have an influence. How do you use that influence in a way where you're building connections with? Do you all know, I don't know if you all are urban, or mostly I would imagine urban schools, right? But do you know the Gram Panchayat, where the schools are, the ward? Those also have connections. Do you know, have you made connections with police stations? Tomorrow when there is a crisis, are you then going to go build that relationship? Who are the people and the actors? So there is police, there are the Asha and the Anganwadi workers. All of these people have a certain say in a family and a child's life. So how do you, in your capacity as a teacher or an educator, build that ecosystem so that it's not कि protection का काम कोई और करेगा, हम स्कूल में learning का काम करते हैं. So it's saying you need to widen, and as influencers, kind of leveraging your own capacity to be able to widen that is what I would say is important.
Thank you so much. I think I hear out loud school leaders to community leaders. And I think that is an ecosystem the children deserve, and it's our responsibility to create that for them. Pragya, just if we can zoom into what can be done, the importance within the school. How significant is the role of, say, an educator, a school leader, a staff, any adult within the school space?
Right. So I would go back to Chatali's point on mentioning that teachers and educators have to, there's some form of capacitating element that needs to be added to be able to make them feel that I am able to respond to the situation. Currently what is happening is, with most of our, if we go back to look at most of the trainings that happens with the teachers, it's around academic learning. But with academic learning also comes, the value of safety, the essence of safety. That I am dealing with 24 kids or 30 kids or 50 kids and sometimes even more than 100 kids. So one teacher is catering to 100 children in the classrooms. So to be able to identify learner-centric needs is something that is pedagogically connected through the teacher trainings. But to be able to understand where the child comes from, what is the context of the child, what is this child, looking up at me and wanting from me. That is something that is mostly missing through these teacher trainings. So capacitating teachers, capacitating these educators, capacitating wardens, because in most of the tribal areas we have warden, hostel facility available, especially in government school setups. So, and even in private schools, boarding schools, capacitating wardens, capacitating administrative staff on identifying issues where they feel that the child might be in a problem. And we will talk more about it moving further, but there are many areas where we can identify red flags easily. There are areas where it is difficult to identify, but there are areas where we can easily identify whether the child is feeling safe, whether there is something going on troubling the child, and how to reach out to that child. So teachers can act as first level responders. They can identify those children because they are connected with the child at least for 8 hours a day. The wardens are connected with the child for 24 hours, and we still, without giving them any support. And by support I just don't mean practice related support, but also understanding that they are burdened with so many administrative tasks, and we still sort of expect them to come and understand and not shout. So I also want to highlight that factor, that even for a teacher to spend 8 hours a day and go back to their families, especially if the teacher is a female, then there are gendered patriarchal practices. The teacher has to go back, also look after the family, take care of the family. So who is taking care of teachers' mental health? Who is taking care of the educators' mental health, the warden's mental health? So that element also sort of falls into this category, because be it protection, be it mental health, these are not watertight compartments that work in silos. They are integrated, they are well connected with each other. And if I am not responding to a teacher's mental health, if I am not responding to an educator's mental health, I can't expect the teacher or the educator to cater holistically to the child's well-being. Yeah, so that element also sort of comes here. So training, capacitating teachers, and then also aligning the policies of the school and making them inclusive. कि मेरी स्कूल में यहाँ पर हर बच्चे को सुना जाता है, हर बच्चे के ख्यालों को सामने रखने की जो है एक जगह मिलती है। यहाँ पे आप सभी के आप कुछ भी सोचें, आप कैसा भी सोचें, आप इसे खुल के यहाँ पे जता सकते हैं, शेयर कर सकते हैं, प्रकट कर सकते हैं अपने जो भी आपके विचार हैं। उसमें आपको हिचकिचाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, हम आपको जज नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो वो इन्वायरमेंट कैसे बनेगा, उसको बनाने के लिए ये कल्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस के साथ साथ टीचर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स में हमें इसको भी इंकॉर्पोरेट करना पड़ेगा। सो या
Thank you so much.
Sorry, just to add,
Yeah.
there are protocols, policies, having systems in a way I think are sort of the easiest thing to do, right? हाँ, हमने what is that complaint box डाल दिया,
Suggestion box.
solution box or whatever in schools, right? The thing is that that's probably the easiest thing to do, and those things more often than not are also done. What happens is when something goes wrong, when there is a complaint of abuse or there is when there is a crisis, then what is the response mechanism?
Yeah.
And are people capacity, understanding, network to respond to the child available at that point? Or like I'm saying, you're then building it. Then are you going to say, अच्छा अभी पुलिस थाना कौन सा है, वहाँ का SHO कौन है, अभी मैं जाके. You cannot do the work of prevention without in the moment of that crisis.
Yeah.
So having, I think systems and protocols are great, but we have systems and protocols and policies in these countries. They're beautiful and they're so well written. It all falls apart when it comes down to the implementation. And really looking at people to understand, well, yes, the word is there, the letter of the law, all of that. What was the spirit behind it?
Yeah.
And to understand that and to actually then exercise that. And I think as educators who are so influential, as you all are in your capacity, to be able to actually even implement that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think what I'm hearing you saying is we need to start with first establishing that language for safety that everybody understands. And no two ways about it. Safety cannot be subjective. What I say is unsafe cannot be you're safe. And also have mechanisms that everybody knows they can go to and whom to reach out to in the event of crisis. And these must be rehearsed and good to go in the instance of an abuse, because then the child can't wait.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Just to add one point to it, while talking about referral mechanisms, we need to also ensure that we have mental health professionals identified in our cities or in our neighborhood where we work, where our schools are and where the children come from, and having that contact already established with those mental health professionals. At the same time, especially in cases of sexual abuse or in cases of bullying or in cases of a child, किसी ने चोरी कर ली बच्चे ने, इन these case scenarios बहुत बड़ी एक हमारे ऊपर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आती है कि we don't sort of spread it out. We ensure the confidentiality of these matters. So also understanding that these matters are confidential, and we have people assigned in our teams, in our schools, who cater to these situations and these cases, not publicly advertising these matters.
It is important, and I think that you raise an important point. If we are working with children, then the laws and the policies that do apply to children, it is your responsibility to know what that is. Because I do think then in your practice you're being fair. Because we do have, there are a lot of laws, but not knowing it and then not knowing how to respond and who to reach out to, in many cases has been, it is detrimental to then the children. Do you talk about it? Do you, how do you share? Do you use names of children below a certain age? You're not allowed to show faces without consent. All of these things are there. They're there. You're violating protection when you're not taking consent of a child while taking a photograph. You might be doing it with the best intent. No, I want to put it on my lovely poster so that I can recruit whatever it is. Have you taken consent? And a child cannot give consent because he or she is a child. Have you taken consent of the parents? So it is about all of these things when you are working with children, and I'm sure all of you all would know that, but it's beyond that as well, right? So I think it's just also understanding that. And what does it mean? Law hai, but
what does it mean in practice?
Kya tha? What was the idea of that?
Thank you so much. I think we've established that it is every person's responsibility working with the child to create that safe space and to ensure they're like a champion to protect them. But it can also be overwhelming. We've heard a lot about educating ourselves, knowing what laws there are, looking out for red flags, understanding what's going on in the community. I've been there, I continue to be there myself. I know it's a lot. And it can seem like you're working in favor of the child while not so much accommodating for the adult. So in the spirit of also building that support for folks over here, what would you say are some concrete, tangible things that an adult within a school space can do as a safeguarding champion, as somebody who's there to protect a child?
Yeah, so before answering that, I would also like to highlight that as an educator, I need to first understand who are these children who are at risk right now. Now, to be able to understand those children, to be able to identify those children, there are very simple, ways to do that. And also taking that support, seeking support from your peer educator or your classroom, like children from your classrooms. So they can act as your support systems in that process. Because आपको एज एन एजुकेटर पता हो ना हो, बच्चों को सब पता होता है कि किसको ठीक लग रहा है, किसको ठीक नहीं लग रहा है, कौन कैसी परिस्थिति में है, वो बच्चे को पता होता है. तो हाउ टू क्रिएट दैट ब्रिज विद द चाइल्ड, विद एवरी सिंगल चाइल्ड इन द क्लासरूम, टू बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कौन ठीक नहीं है, किसको ज़रूरत है ज़्यादा. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम लुकिंग एट द पैटर्न वेयर एकदम से कोई बच्चा एब्सेंट हो रहा है, स्कूल में नहीं आ रहा है, विड्रॉल सिम्टम्स आपको दिख रहे हैं. सो बाय विड्रॉल सिम्टम्स आई मीन कि द चाइल्ड वाज कंटिन्यूसली पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन अ लॉट ऑफ एक्टिविटीज, स्पोर्ट्स एक्टिविटीज़ होता है, कोल कल्चरल एक्टिविटीज़ होता है, क्लासरूम पार्टिसिपेशन, रेजिंग हैंड्स, आंसरिंग, वो एकदम से कम हो गया है. सो दैट इज़ ऑल्सो वन मैकेनिज्म टू आइडेंटिफाई विच चाइल्ड इज़ एट रिस्क. When I was working as a counselor, मेरा एक तरीका होता था, आई यूज टू so children who were sent to me for counseling, I used to especially look at their copies. So कई कॉपीज में स्क्रिबल करके बच्चे लिख रहे होते थे कि आई एम गुड एट नथिंग, आई डोंट बिलोंग हियर, आई शुड डाई, एंड दीज आर द स्टेटमेंट्स चिल्ड्रन in the age of grade, in grade 5, in grade 6, in grade 7 are writing. So these are also some ways to know which child is at risk. After identification, and you can also talk to the peer students, like I said that okay, lately I've been noticing that X child is not coming in the classroom, or not feeling well, generally seems to be very angry, बहुत आउटबर्स्ट हो रहे हैं या बहुत सैड है, ज़्यादा शेयरिंग नहीं हो रही है, डू यू नो लाइक व्हाट इज़ हैपनिंग, कैन यू शेयर और कैन यू फाइंड आउट. सो व्हेन यू आर गिविंग दैट ओनरशिप टू द चिल्ड्रन, उससे ज़्यादा ब्यूटीफुल चीज़ कुछ नहीं हो सकती. एंड दे हैव देयर वेज टू फाइंड आउट, they have their ways to come back to you and share ki, this is what is happening in their class, Didi, this is what is happening in their class, bhaiya, and this is where we need support. So giving that ownership to the children, that is one way to deal with it. Thirdly, reaching out to your support systems, like she said, who are these people, who are these stakeholders that you reach out to, because as an educator, it's not my sole responsibility. I have my support system around and I have the right to reach out to them. कई बार हमारे लिए ओवरवेलमिंग हो जाता है जब ऐसा कुछ होता है और हमें लगता है कि मेरी ड्यूटी थी, मेरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी, बट नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. योर प्रिंसिपल्स, योर पीयर एजुकेटर्स, रीच आउट टू देम, टॉक टू देम. अगर कंसर्न्स मेंटल हेल्थ लेंस से ज़्यादा आपको दिख रहे हैं, वहाँ पे are these professionals, can I contact these mental health professionals and can I take that support from them? If you know any counselor in your network or in your friends network, reach out to them and ask them to come and support you, and they will share different ways, different mechanisms, different strategies to deal with that child, right? So these are certain ways where you can build your own support system, you can build your own network.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it's not easy.
Yeah.
And especially the lives of the children that I'm sure a lot of you all work with, a lot of ones that we work with. There's a lot going on, right? So what we do, and a lot of the children that we work with are not even in school to begin with. So our first job really is to say, come to school. I'll be honest, at Angan, we don't really care about whether you're learning or not. But when a child is at school, is just physically present at school, means the child is not at work, the child is not married, the child is not missing. You're physically present, right? Then learning and all will happen, but at least you're physically there. So for us, a lot of the work is to say, come to school. One of the things that we do is we do what we call as a slow rescue. We don't do rescue of children, but what we say is when a child is not coming to school for significant periods of time, for whatever, parents have migrated, there's child-headed households, they have to work, शादी की बात हो रही है, spaces are unsafe, that's why you can't walk to school, schools are far, so I can't. So we say, okay, come for 2 days a week. Start with 2 days a week. Have that system around to say, okay, somebody is going to take me. Work with the family as well to understand what is the situation. If a child is working and is contributing to the income of the family, to stop that is actually worse for the family in some ways. So what we do a lot of slow rescue work. And it is important to slowly build that so that the child is then physically begins to attend. Early warning signs, what you said, red flags, is very, very important. A lot of the work that we do in Jharkhand is just around attendance tracking irregular children and understanding what is the situation back at home. It would be the most beautiful thing if a child's life would be compartmentalized, where घर में जो हो रहा है वो घर की बात है, स्कूल में जो हो रहा है वो मेरा प्रॉब्लम है. Unfortunately, a child's life is not like, it's not बटा हुआ like that. So understanding who are your children, what are certain vulnerabilities even, do you know anything about the child's family? उसकी अगर बड़ी बहन है, बड़ी बहन की शादी कौन से उम्र में हुई थी, then what is the risk for the younger girl. Very likely that if the girl, if she has an older sister who was married off early, high chances that the younger one will most likely be. What is the situation? So be able to understand where is the child coming from? Because when the child is coming in front of you, sitting at your table, bringing a whole world with them in your classroom. So really understanding that and being able to do that. I will say it's not easy to be able to do some of the response work. It is slow work. You have to negotiate. You have to get families on board. Also understanding, I'm not sure like what states you all work in, but there are schemes and social protection schemes to have girls in school, right? Like in Bengal, we work with the Kanya Shri Yojana and all of that. So we even understanding okay, what is available to ensure that that is going to support, can I get these schemes that are available to children. So I think really, I will say yes, educators are very burdened, but what you all are doing in the classroom, all your beautiful, I don't know, all your learning and your teaching, all of that will all go to waste if you're not actually understanding and addressing who you're doing this with. So it is, I don't think it's easy at all, and I think a lot of times we were saying in the, before we started, yeah, you fail. I've seen children in my time not being able to go back to school. They are still working. Of course, there's child brides. The numbers that we have, it's because it's happening. But you have to be able to not just respond, but also prevent. And so for the prevention, these early warning signs, understanding your community, understanding other practices in that your community engage in. I know in Rajasthan, शादियाँ कम उम्र में हो जाती है, but then they say नहीं, हम गौना करेंगे, we won't send the girl to the in-laws. But you understand some of these traditional practices. But नहीं, वो हम होली के टाइम पे जाएगी, एक हफ्ता Sasural. What is happening in Sasural? She's not there playing Ludo with her husband, no? She's like, and she's a child. So I think understanding also some of these practices is important. So I think to really say that if you're working with children, you can't say that हम सिर्फ learning करेंगे. Unfortunately, it won't work.
Yeah.
So it's really about saying, okay, now we've taken this responsibility of teaching. I don't know, I guess, someone should have said that it's teaching plus. So it is, but it is, I think it's extremely overwhelming, and I don't think it's easy. But you just have to keep, and it's also not one solution fits all. Because every child's life in some sense is different. But there are ways to get others on board. Like she was saying, it does take a village.
Yeah.
So to really sort of be able to do that, but be at the center of it, rather at the periphery of it, and saying, कोई और कर लेगा. मैं ये कर रही हूँ ना, मैं beautiful lesson plan बना लिया है मैंने, वो मेरा INM करना सबसे ज़रूरी है. But it won't happen. I know.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
it's been
you're
a
right.
minute. Yeah.
Thank you so much. For those of you who have been taking notes, I think we've largely covered warning signs, red flags, working a slow rescue by building that relationship with families. I think earlier when we spoke, we were also talking about creating dedicated spaces where we talk to children about safety. Because yes, they will take ownership of a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it is our responsibility.
I just want to add to that. You can create safe spaces, but I think boundaries with the spaces are just as important.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into obviously mandatory reporting and all of that, but when you create a safe space, safe spaces will lead to children sharing with you. When they share, as an adult, there is responsibility that you have when something is shared. So create your safe spaces, but to be able to manage those safe spaces with boundaries is also
Equip
important.
yourself.
Yes, equip yourself and know what that means. When children share with you, the burden lies with you then to be able to respond, and there are certain laws in this matter. So then it's quite black and white. So then you can't say Yeah, but you know, something, all of this then as adults one needs to manage. So with mandatory reporting, you know that in our country we don't, the POCSO law, right? Children below the age are not, they're not allowed to engage in sexual, so there is the sexual offenses, but they're not allowed to engage even with consent. There is no consent even. So, but if a child is sharing with you that they, I mean, it's not, I can't even say with consent because you're not allowed to, but if they have, even with both of them, and they share that with you, the burden is on you to report that. And that does become tricky when there was consent. So, when you create these spaces, be clear about what you're talking about and how that is. That's the reason why we can't do sex education in our country, because you can't. It's not allowed. You're not allowed to have some of these conversations, because when children share, or if it was shared with you, then you do have to report. And if there was consent between the child, if there were two children involved, and even if there was consent with the two children, there will be action taken. Right? I don't know if you want to add to the boundaries, but yeah.
So, you go
Kind of, right, yeah.
Like we talked about boundaries, right? It's when a child shares something to us, it becomes our responsibility to report it to the authorities.
No, but see, this is why you
So,
need a little bit of capacity building, understanding of the law. You will need to report it to the authorities, but is your authority, who is the authority, sensitized enough to respond? At the end of the day, you have to also think of the best interest of the child.
Can I just
Always.
rephrase what we discussed earlier in the interest of the larger audience? I think we're saying we need those dedicated safe spaces, right? But in order to ensure that whatever comes out of that safe space doesn't make more trouble and actually helps the child feel safe, we also need to know what we're going to do with what comes out of it. So figure out that plan of action and don't go into it.
You know, Yala, this might be a little sort of controversial, but you all are not actually friends you are the adult. Yeah. So you have a responsibility as an adult. You can, your manner and approach can be friendly, but you are not their friend. The burden lies on you because you are the adult. So it is a bit like, how do you sort of manage that? And it does become tricky because you do want, right? Safe is not necessarily ki sab baatein hogi. You can still talk about stuff. You can still give children information in a way that is smart.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, he's going to take a minute and ask both of you to share what your vision for child safety is. This is difficult work, and we understand. We were talking about water poly crisis. This is earlier. But we do have a vision, right? We want this. We want the world to be different. So, I mean, feel free to pick a time frame for this vision.
I think for me, the vision for child safety is that that safety isn't siloed as it is. It does, like in many ways, like the way gender is today, is intersected with health, with livelihood. You think about safety when you think about all the different sectors and spaces. That to me is one, that it's not like there's one department that looks at children's safety and women and child, wo WCD wo kaam karta hai, to wo hi dekhega. So I guess for me that's, it would intersperse and become all, and my second is that everyone takes accountability for children's safety. And I don't mean it as that, oh, hum karenge, but who is accountable? When something happens, or when something, or when you're trying to prevent something, wo accountability kiski hai, and it has to be, and it's when everyone's taking that accountability, well, I think children just be more safer.
For me, it's as simple as every single child feels that their voice matters, and they have the agency and choice to be able to make decisions for their life and feel safe without having any fear of being judged, being ridiculed, or being discriminated against them. So that for me is the vision for safety.
I'm just going to
At the
add
same
to
time.
that and say it doesn't feel safe, is safe.
Yeah.
It's it's not black and white.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, there's no hair safe when there are things that are met. It is, like, I'll go back and say it is a feeling, but it's something, you have to make sure that
Yeah.
happens.
Thank you so much. My vision for safety is we don't need to call to light the fact that child safety matters,
Yeah.
and it's something
Yeah.
that's woven into the fabric of our society,
Yeah.
our schooling
Yeah.
systems, our childcare systems. So, just wanted to leave you with that thought, and we can take your question now. One last question.
We have to take this.
So we can take a couple of questions. Q&A.
Should I go now?
Yes.
Thanks. I'm sorry this was covered a little earlier, but to both of you, the work of that you've been speaking about involves trauma for the caregiver or for the adult.
Yeah.
And we talk about structures that you may have come across or used where there is and that trauma needs to be processed to be effective on a day-to-day basis. So whether it's group or individual structures where you can process that trauma and allow that healing to happen for yourself.
You did speak about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I will share two things. So in my organization, we used to have this common practice to be done on everyday basis in schools. It is of a check-in space. So when the educators or the teachers or the admin staff comes to school, along with the principal, in the staff room, we will start our day with a check-in, a quick check-in. Where are we? How are we feeling? Anything we want to share? And that check-in is important because not just the trauma, but the everyday invisible baggage we all carry as humans. We are not robots. So we have a lot of things going on in our head, right? So just to bring ourselves in that present, in that place, check-in helps a lot. Secondly, counselor needs a counselor, right? And because in a country like ours where mental health still is a taboo, and we still don't feel comfortable enough to reach out, when we require that mental support, and we have a tendency to label people with their attributes, with their behaviors. This is where seeking out becomes crucial. So I am not feeling like this, I need support, are certain statements we as a society need to normalize. We can't be successful in everything. We can't, we can't click on our to-do list all the time. We do fail in a lot of situations, and that is okay. So to be able to normalize that by saying statements that, I plan to do these things, but I was not able to do because of whatever reasons, and I'm feeling like this, and I am reaching out to you for that support. So when we normalize behaviors like this, children see that, children learn from us, children imitate our behaviors, right? And most of the things that children pick from educators, pick from adults, pick from parents are not things that we say, are things we don't say, right? So normalizing these things, and like I said, reaching out to mental health professionals. So these referral mechanisms are not just for children. This needs to be established for our educators, for our teachers as well, है ना? तो वो and like she highlighted that it's not something that will just come in a day or two. ये पूरा सालों साल लग जाते हैं. मुझे 8 साल हो गए मेंटल हेल्थ पे काम करते हुए, और आज भी मैं वही चीज़ देखती हूँ कि I have to start from day one of just being able to enabling that environment where people feel that it's okay. मतलब हाँ, mental health issues सिर्फ पागल लोगों को नहीं होते, और ये जो पागल लोगों को हमने डिफाइन किया है, वो पागल लोग है क्या, कौन है? हम सब में सारे एट्रीब्यूट्स होते हैं. तो normalizing is very critical and it doesn't get built in a day or two. It requires, you know, it requires consistent effort, day-to-day effort. So I don't know if I was able to answer your question, but yeah.
I just want to add that, just to say that a lot of the trauma or the crisis, and you know, we as professionals, educated people, more sort of privileged, have access to what you're calling the mental health professionals in our country. But I'll be honest, there aren't good also mental health professionals available and accessible.
Yeah.
But I think the second thing is the what we also call is chronic trauma, right? That one is facing continuously because of a chronic crisis. So I am like, for example, for us, a lot of the work that we do in Bengal, as a result of the 2 cyclones that have happened and have disrupted people's lives, they're just living in a state of a chronic crisis, which is then leading to trauma, which is just you, and yes, it's then like, this is my life now, this is okay. So how do you break out of it? It is about talking. In a country which doesn't have a lot of good mental health professionals, it is still important to be able to talk about it and to not normalize what you're feeling, but to be able to have spaces to talk about it as well, even as sort of lay people, you know, lay persons, to think. But it is, I mean, organizationally for our social workers, we do have professionals that they can then talk to, because you're dealing with children and children's situations continuously, and that often is triggering. So yeah, we do have people that they then are referred to, but unfortunately the communities don't have access, resources for that. So just being able to then create other more sort of informal spaces to be able to talk about it and not normalize their life. That ऐसा तो होता ही है यहाँ, नहीं ऐसे ही होगा, हमारे यहाँ तो ऐसे ही होता है, but you know, नहीं होना चाहिए. So I think just being able to talk more, I guess.
Yeah. Can I just extrapolate that a little bit and talk about building these tiny practices into our organizations or communities towards creating a cultural shift?
It has to be a perspective and a cultural shift.
So I think that will work on all forms of abuse, say even physical. You don't normalize something like domestic violence or corporal punishment. You have that conversation. And just wanted to bring that up.
Just would like to sum up both of your points by adding one more statement which requires a lot of debate and discussion, but wanted to keep this as a perspective that even as an individual, not in the capacity of educator only I'm saying, but as an individual, to be able to have that empathy for a different person playing a different role is also very crucial, because as educators, as lawyers, as advocates, as mental health professionals, as doctors, we all are burdened in the system. 10,000 पे एक मेंटल हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल हमारे देश में है, तो जो स्थिति है वो बहुत ही गंभीर है, and everybody is burdened so much. So to be able to also sort of have that compassion, and I understand in cases of abuse, we sort of detach from that compassion, and likely so, because of course we are getting triggered and we have our own emotions playing out in that situation. But to be able to understand that where is this person coming from, and can I sort of be there, or can I do something, or if I'm not able to do something, but at least I understand that this is why this person is so. Because a lot of times during teacher trainings, or during recently when I was part of a teacher training program, the wardens sitting in the room said that we are so teachers also sort of discriminate against us, and they keep on highlighting that we are the ones who abuse children a lot. Now, and teachers also gave nuances where they saw wardens doing that. And then it became sort of compulsory, mandatory to highlight that the warden is taking care of 50 plus children. And 24 घंटा उसको उसकी फैमिली के साथ वो उस हॉस्टल में रह रही है या रह रहा है, लेकिन उसको अपनी फैमिली के लिए और खुद के लिए समय नहीं है उनके पास. हम यहाँ पे 7 पीरियड्स बच्चों को पढ़ा करके आ जाते हैं, हमें कम से कम 2 घंटा चाहिए होता है खुद के लिए टू बी एबल टू प्रिपेयर फॉर द नेक्स्ट डे अगैन, और यहाँ पे वो 24 घंटा हम कैसे एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं. तो वहाँ पे दैट सेंस ऑफ कंपैशन is also something that we need to sort of delve into and keep that in us if we are able to. Yeah. So that is just one perspective I want to add.
Thank you. We'll just take one question back there and then you. Last two questions and then.
Hi. Generally, this is probably an extension of the vision response that you shared. And like so, a couple of times, card currently doesn't exist. Assuming it were possible, what might it look like and what would their priorities be?
I would say not to have a cardo and actually everyone do it, right? So really, I mean, child protection is a human system. It's about humans doing it, right? It's all about, it is about all of us doing it. So instead of saying ki, if we had a cardo, we don't have a cardo. But if we had a cardo, again, wo siloed ho jata. Versus saying ki everyone needs to do it. I think my vision is how does everyone take accountability. So it's literally everyone who does interact with a child saying ki I do have to look at, if I'm looking at health, so even when an ASHA worker is interacting with a family, she's not just going to give the the portion to the family or to the mother or whatever. She's understanding ki chal kya raha hai in that family. That's when things will change. If teachers, wardens, whoever's interacting looks a little bit beyond and looks at protection much more holistic. So I would say no, we don't want another cadre. The UK, for example, has a cadre, right? They do have a whole service that looks at protection, but then there are issues right there because it does become siloed and you then break up the child in many ways. So I would say everyone who's interacting, how do you not look at a very fundamental right of protection? We should all be looking at protection. So I would say no cadre, but everyone taking on that accountability.
Yes?
Chakali, you spoke about like systems and implementations being like they have their flaws and things working out, right? And in such situations, especially when like abuse is involved, when you can see the system is failing, where like whatever actions need to be taken are not being taken. In such cases, at a personal level or at an individual level, what are some things we can implement or we can try to do?
When you talk about abuse, you're talking about what kind of abuse?
Like sexual abuse and physical abuse.
So there are laws in this, right? Yes, you're right that they don't get. Also, sometimes I think to understand why do they not, right? Often what will happen in a case of abuse, and I'm sure you know this also more, that the survivor will take the statement back. Right? They take the statement back, and they take the statement. Why? Because the person often, and in this is research and our data as well, the abuser is a known person. So मैं कैसे, like if it's a father for example, then मैं कैसे, how do I do this? How do I send my father to jail? And there isn't a support system. So normally what we would do is we would actually to prepare, and we've done this range of statements, then you have to prepare, you not just have to prepare the child, but you also have to prepare the mother, or you have to prepare whoever else, who's that other adult in that child, have to support her कि वो statement नहीं. But yes, in many cases we will see के the police will say, but they've recanted on the statement, and you understand why they would have. A lot of times we see कि जब when there is a शादी की बात चलती है, and then you report कि this is a child marriage, then the groom's family will give money and say कि बंद करा दो. When there is sexual assault, we have had खप पंचायत take a decision कि नहीं, अभी उसने उसका रेप किया है तो अभी शादी करा दो. So that it is. So that's when it doesn't work. But again, and I'm going to say, you cannot do this work in the middle of that crisis, right? You have to do the work to build कि वो पंचायत के साथ 2 साल 1 साल काम करना है कि do we want to make this a village which is anti-child marriage. But जब वो, and it's not just about then this family and this case. It's saying that no girl in our village or in our community or in our school will get married. So of course there's times when it doesn't work. And to support in that instant, to I think understand where has it fallen apart. There is money exchange. There is a lot of honor.
Yeah.
Over here, in a lot of these cases, it's ghar ki baat, and ye ghar ki izzat आप बाहर लेके जा रहे हो. That's why in a lot of the cases that we work on child marriages, women will not want to, because that's a personal matter. And safety is actually, we need to make it a much more of a public good. It's not a personal matter of my house, right? Then we only have these cases, what happened in Calcutta, Nirbhaya, then you take to the streets. But when you make it a public good and it's about everyone's, right, then then you're not talking about just individual cases of harm. Sorry, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think it's to understand where is it broken down and what were the reasons. But I think that it's very complex when they don't work out with sexual abuse, especially.
Yeah. And just to add to her point, we are not touching mandatory reporting, but this sort of comes into the picture there.
Yeah.
If the child is not ready and not consenting, but the child is in a position where there is a potential, of the child getting abused again and again and again, and that point, we as adults don't have a choice to let it be. We have to take an action, but the child is not consenting. So mandatory reporting doesn't mean that we stop at one point. Multiple rounds of conversation with parents, with the child, to be able to understand where that hesitation to report is coming from, is also a process of mandatory reporting. So उसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि पता चल गया और हाथों हाथ आपको रिपोर्ट करना है. नहीं, आप काउंसलिंग कीजिए, पेरेंट्स के साथ बातचीत कीजिए, and you reach out to those support systems who can sort of communicate and continuously counsel and talk to the child, talk to the family to be able to reach and report. So that is also part of that process.
Thank you, Pragya. Just want to circle back to what you said earlier around any of these after an instance of abuse is most likely to be a band-aid. I think the best idea would be to start laying the groundwork now.
You have to do the prevention.
Start developing those relationships with your community actors, with your safety personnel, with your police, with your hospitals, with your mental health professionals today. So that tomorrow when you want them to work in favor of the child's safety, you're already aligned on the language that you're speaking and what you're working towards. I think this is a fairly nice note for us to close this panel on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.